When you start investing in self-care, your circle gets smaller. Invitations get smaller.
Why does that happen?
Because people actually like to function off of your dysfunction. When I didn't know who I was doing almost everything to please everybody, and therefore people appreciated that.
Wow.
When I started discovering, and as one person said, I had a messianic complex. Once I got delivered from trying to be people's messiahs, things changed.
Hey, what's up, y'all? Welcome to another episode of Transform You, where I believe if you can change your thinking, you can change your life. Listen, y'all, it's been a minute since I dropped an episode, but it's finally here. And today we're gonna do something a little bit different. I'm gonna take y'all back to 2021, where I had a conversation with my father-in-law, who is the pastor of one of the largest churches in the DMV, Bishop Oscar Brown of the First Mount Olive Church. Listen, I believe if you're going to navigate your future correctly, you have to surround yourself with seasoned voices that give you insight and perspective. And so we talked about ministry, we talked about his journey, and we talked about his legacy. Lean in, because what he's about to talk to us about is going to change our life. Welcome to this episode of Transform Faith with Bishop Oscar Brown.
I am super excited to be here with a special, very, very special guest today. A mentor, a father figure, and he just happens to be my father-in-law. I'm super grateful for the connection that I have with him, and I'm so thankful for the time that he's allotted to me today to be able to interview him. And so with no further ado, welcome Bishop Oscar E. Brown. How are you?
I'm very good, sir. Thank you so much for the invitation to share today.
One of the things that I think is, as an icebreaker that I like to do, is called a game called word chess. It's a one-of-one where I say a word and then you say the first thing that comes to your mind. And so, you ready to play?
All right, let's play.
All right, so the first word is family.
Support.
Support. Wife.
Close-knit.
Legacy.
Designed.
Pandemic.
Survival.
Pandemic.
Overcome.
Where are we as it relates to the church?
Making reference to the pandemic? Well, I think the church is trying to find her way.
Okay.
Unfortunately, I think the pandemic is driving the church versus the church driving the pandemic.
Wow. So, we talked about church. So, I already called him a bishop. So, as you can probably already tell, he is the pastor of the First Mount Olive Free Will Baptist Church. Can you tell the people a little bit about yourself and who you are as it relates to your process, your journey, your purpose?
All right. Well, actually, I've been privileged to share as the pastor of the First Mount Olive Church, now coming on 35 years.
Wow.
September will be 35 years. And this is our second location. I came to Saratoga and Fremont.
Wow.
21 years old.
Yeah.
And scared to death. Because I had never had that type of responsibility. First Mount Olive had a wonderful legacy.
Yeah.
And went through a few transitions, and the call was extended to come and share as the senior leader.
Okay.
In fact, when I heard it initially, I didn't take it seriously. Do the process of interviewing.
Wow.
Because of getting the history that was attached to the church.
Big legacy, big
legacy,
yeah.
Big shoes to fill, you know. Bishop Caesar was known around the state, around the country,
Okay.
as a powerful leader, and grew. He was not the founding pastor,
Okay.
but he is the more noted pastor.
Okay.
Because, again, he brought the church really on the map.
Wow.
And so for me, trying to fall into that legacy was a bit much, was a bit much. In fact, it was predicted by some colleagues that I would not last
No.
6 months.
No way.
Yeah, certainly wouldn't last. And with the help of the Lord, it's now 35 years.
35
and
years.
I don't know what the report card says, but I'm still here, by the grace of God. And so it's been an unusual journey.
Wow. Can we talk a little bit about how unusual it has been for you? You said, you alluded to earlier that you have big shoes to fill. And at 21 years of age, you took on the responsibility of a church that had been around longer than your 21 years.
Very much so.
And so, can you talk a little bit about what were some of the earlier on challenges? And let's jump to year 35. And not to say that those same challenges exist, but there are new challenges in 35. And so, can you talk a little bit about what it was like at the age of 21 with that challenge, and what it's like now at the age that you are, but you're in year 35 of your pastorate? Mm-hmm. So how does the two coincide?
Well, when I think about those earlier challenges, the church desired structure.
Okay.
It had gone through 2 splits before I came.
Okay.
And the remnant that was left, they weren't the fighting members.
Mm-hmm.
They weren't the cantankerous members.
Yeah.
The process had humbled the church.
Okay.
That they desired a leader. And so that made it easier for me to be able to come in and navigate. Some ministries say they want change, but they don't have the mindset of change because there's this arrogancy that comes with them to say, now this is how we do it, boy, and you just fall in line.
Yeah.
For the most part, that was not my legacy.
Okay.
This church, as I've said down through the years, was teachable.
Okay.
All right, they had been crushed. If you go, with Jeremiah the prophet, and as he is talking about the clay on the wheel, and it was marred, and it had to be crushed again. Certainly, this church had gone through a crushing process.
Wow.
And so when I came, they opened their arms to me to teach them the fundamentals of the faith. It was already a worshiping church, a singing church.
Okay.
But I remember in the interview, they asked me, would I be a teaching pastor?
Wow.
And that lined up with what God had put in my life. Many people thought and still think that preaching is my passion, but actually teaching. I love to teach the Word of God.
Can you go into a little bit of the passion opposed to the passion where you talk about you love to teach opposing to preach? Not saying that you don't like to preach, because you are a preacher's preacher.
Okay,
you're a preacher's preacher. I don't know if they know this, but you are a preacher's preacher. But you said you love to teach. Can you really delve into that just a little bit?
Well, when I was coming along, you were celebrated for teaching.
Okay.
You were celebrating for being able to pull it. To preach very well.
Yeah.
And so that's what I focused my attention on.
Okay.
But I knew that there was a hunger in me to do something other than the Sunday morning experience, to be able to break the word down and to have the opportunity to answer questions about the scriptures. And this church afforded me that opportunity. Now, they were certainly used to hoopers and people pulling it, And so, for a while, that was my focus, if I can be honest. But then, as the church started growing, and I came into a level of freedom. I saw that our Tuesday night Bible study was just as large as our Sunday morning. Now, for whatever reason, I didn't feel the pressure to preach a Bible study. Some of my colleagues do, but I never felt the pressure. And so we'd have the blackboard out, we'd have handouts.
Wow.
And
you were doing that in the 90s?
Yes.
Wow.
And the church was very open to it. In fact, I had said I would never start a second service until the Bible study got filled. And they would sit on the balcony for Bible study. To God be the glory. And that allowed me to come into my own as far as being a pastor who teaches. Thank God for the ability to preach. But the fulfillment for me is really being able to empower the people through teaching.
That's amazing. I know you talked a little bit about earlier on that the church yearned and longed for structure. Can you talk to leaders who may be pastors, who may be in the marketplace, entrepreneurs, people who are business owners, CEOs, etc. Can you talk to how important setting a firm structural foundation for your organization is?
It is so important, Minister Josh. It is so important because I use this analogy all the time. You cannot build any taller than your foundation.
Okay.
So if your foundation is not strong, then it limits how high you can go.
Wow.
Many people want their structure to be a large membership. But what does it mean to have a very large membership and no foundation to keep them stable? As you know, our history, we've gone through a lot of challenges in this ministry.
Right.
From a storm where it was literally raining in the church to the fire. I tell people I've been tried by the water and the fire.
No, for real.
For real, yeah, not just a saying.
You ain't just talking it. You lived it.
No, sir, I've lived it. And so structure is so important because many people jump out there because of gift.
Wow.
And gift will only take you but so far.
Right.
Sometimes, people wonder why ministries are growing when there's not a strong preacher as the pastor.
Okay.
I promise you, if you look at the structure behind that ministry, it is that thing that is growing the church. I just shared it with a guy the other day. I said, preaching is so plenteous now. I don't have to move to hear good preaching. I just pick up my phone and hear renowned preachers from around the world. But what that phone experience can't give me is structure.
Can you talk a little bit about that? I want to cut across the field because I feel like you're really pushing and you're really hitting the nail on the head with this. We are now in a pandemic. And I was telling someone the other day that we now live in what we would call congregations and members are now consumer congregates. Because now they watch you on their phone, and if they don't like what you say, they swipe. And if you don't have any other systems, this is the only thing that keeps them. And so now we live in a time where people don't feel like they need to be in the building.
Exactly.
And so what do you say to the person who has now, how do I say this, who has now decided I'm going to be a consumer Christian?
Wow.
A consumer Christian. And some of us, let me just defend them as well. The reality is, I don't think they're doing it on purpose.
Certainly.
I think the season has pushed them to be this way.
Certainly.
And so what would you say to that person that's really on the sidelines of consumerism and really don't understand the importance or have forgotten the importance of the building?
Wow. That is so, I appreciate that because that's confirmation. I just met with our leaders to forecast where does the church go from here.
Right.
And just before the pandemic hit, I was scheduled to teach on the church from the book of Acts.
Wow.
Because many of us don't know our church history. I'm not talking about your local congregation, but I'm talking about from a biblical perspective.
Wow.
Because really our systems and structures should come from the Word of God.
Absolutely.
Because we are spiritual in birth and by design. You
Absolutely.
know? And so I just reiterated for our leaders, that we're going to be talking about the church as a building and church as a fellowship. Both of them are present in the book of Acts.
A building and
They went from
fellowship.
house to house,
Okay.
you know, and they also commune one with another.
Okay.
Unfortunately, this pandemic has suggested that the house is not important. I can just get what I want to get or need to get in the privacy of my home. Well, of course, you're a Bible student, so you understand that the word koinonia is the very central part of the church.
Right.
Foundation, fellowship, communion, you know. And so I don't care how much I look at my phone, it limits my ability to commune with the saints. Now I get the word, I can worship, but it has to be an exchange and not just me receiving,
Yeah.
but also giving.
What do you say to the person who's saying, well, Bishop, I get the communion at home. Me and my friends, they come over, they watch the TV, and we commune with each other.
Yeah.
Why do I need to be, what do you say to them?
Yeah, but that's still limited
Okay.
because that's selective communion. Because I'm
You
not
talk-
inviting everybody to my house. So I already have a proclivity towards them before they come to my house. When I come to the open worship,
Wow.
I don't know who's in the room.
Wow.
And I think, you hit on the fact that we're consumers in this season, but we never know who we are depositing into. I think about as a child, the people in church who influenced my life that I never understood that they were influencing my life until later in my walk with God.
Wow.
And so it is, yes, deliberate, but then also it is also what could be the other word? There could be an exchange without anyone even knowing that it's happening.
Right.
And so I hope that the church doesn't settle for just virtual.
Wow.
I'm not suggesting that it should go away. All right? I believe it is here. And I believe it has served a purpose. But at the same token, it ought not be my fountain of refreshing. It ought to be the bottled water I buy.
Wow. Yeah.
So I hope the church doesn't. Oh, in fact, if I can use this illustration, because certainly it fits you. As you know, your second child was birthed at home.
Absolutely.
And unexpectedly. And as she was coming, the hospital was on the line and they were given instructions. But they also informed that they were sending the paramedics.
Yeah.
And baby and mom still had to come to the hospital to make sure that they were healthy.
Right.
I've used that illustration to say that at home we're birthing a lot of things, but who's examining them to make sure that what's birthed is also healthy?
Wow.
The fellowship allows us to make sure that we're not birthing heresy and strange doctrine.
Wow.
And that which is accommodating for our faith. You know, now they didn't have to stay in the hospital. In fact, they haven't been back. You know, of course, I've done doctor's visits, but it was for the examination to make sure everybody is okay.
Wow, that's amazing. And so, I wanna stay on this subject, but I want you to talk a little bit about how have you pivoted. You know, we've been hearing that. You have to learn how to pivot. You have to learn how to readjust. You have to learn how to reimagine, rethink, rewrite, you know, back up 2 and 3, write the vision, make it plain on the tablet so those who see it can run with. We always say this, but can you talk a little bit about how you have mastered the pivot from the beginning of the pandemic to where you are now?
Wow. Well, the pandemic certainly gave me an opportunity to see and to examine what I was doing out of history and what I was doing out of devotion to God. That was a hard pivot for me.
Yeah.
You know, because I discovered a lot of stuff that I was doing was out of history.
Wow.
That I didn't have a clear understanding of why I was doing what I was doing.
Wow.
And so to have to preach to empty pews for several months shifted me into making sure that I was delivering a very strong and sustainable word. And thank God for the saints.
Yeah.
But oftentimes we use the saints as our validation for whether we are actually preaching.
That's what we do.
But when the church is empty,
Them pews don't talk.
and those pews don't talk, and there's no amen,
Yeah.
that word has to be able to stand on its own.
Wow.
You know, and so it pushed me. It really did. Everybody doesn't have the perspective that the pandemic was good for us, but I suggest it was good for us. And you can see the difference. You can see the difference between those who saw the pandemic as a benefit and those who saw the pandemic as a burden.
Wow.
Because those who saw it as a burden, they're back to old business as usual. They're doing the same thing they did before the pandemic struck. Those of us who've seen it as a benefit have gleaned from it and have extracted what we need to propel the church into the next dimension.
Wow. That's amazing. And so you talked a little bit about your history as the 21-year-old. Now you're about to be in year 35 in September. What has the journey been like for you? After you look, you know, you said you've been through the water, you've been through the fire, you've been through the transition into another location. You've been through a global pandemic. When you look back over the 35 years, how has the journey been for you?
Wow. It's hard to believe it's been 35 years. But then on the other side, my journey went from a very public journey to a very private journey.
Okay.
Public journey, it started as a public journey because I was one of the boy wonder preachers in the city.
Okay.
You know, when we came along, the average preacher in the city was in his 40s.
Really?
Maybe 50s, all right?
Okay.
So, in fact, my church, they declared that in the church I grew up in, Mount Moriah Baptist, I was the youngest person who ever preached.
In that church?
In that church.
Wow.
You know. And so therefore I got a lot of engagements, okay, around town.
You're everywhere.
Just every youth day.
Wow.
You know, I'm preaching.
Talk of the town.
So then, in many different ways. And so when I came to First Mount Olive, people who had heard me at other churches started joining. Okay. And so we continued that whole tradition of, being at this church and doing 3 and 4 services a week. Going out in the week time to share. I ran this church crazy.
Right.
They were they were faithful, and they would follow.
Right.
After the fire, things shifted.
Wow.
Not just our location, because we're no longer in Baltimore City. We're in Lithicum, which is still close to Baltimore, but outside.
About 15 minutes out.
Yeah, certainly. We're not as public as we used to be. We were on a bus line before. There's no bus line here. So if you're coming here, you're coming deliberate. Minister Josh, I want to suggest that wasn't just a physical move for the ministry, but it was also a spiritual shifting in my own life.
Wow.
Because when they called me 35 years ago at 21 years of age, I would have never said I had low self-esteem.
Okay.
The gift was carrying me. And the more I engaged in ministry, the more there was a yearning for who am I as Oscar. Not the pastor.
Yeah.
Not the bishop.
Yeah.
Not serving in other capacities around in fellowships such as Full Gospel or KCP. But who am I as an individual? And I was crumbling. I was lost. And people didn't know it. And it took several traumatic moments in my life, including the death of one of our friends and my own brother, to wake me up.
Wow.
That I don't care how great you are, and both of the persons I just mentioned were phenomenal men. But yet, there was still an emptiness there.
Yeah.
Gift is not enough. And oftentimes what we call arrogancy is really people who are trying to hide.
Yeah.
That there's an emptiness in them.
Right.
And so it shifted me to do self-care in my life.
Okay.
Which then, as you know, when you start investing in self-care, your circle gets smaller. Invitations get smaller.
Why does that happen?
Because people actually like to function off of your dysfunction. When I didn't know who I was doing almost everything to please everybody, and therefore people appreciated that.
Wow.
When I started discovering, and as one person said, I had a messianic complex. Once I got delivered from trying to be people's messiahs, things changed.
Wow.
Because Paul talked about how we can oftentimes save others and at the same time be a castaway ourselves.
Yeah.
And so that shifted ministry for me, which then made me comfortable now with the idea that I don't need every seat full. Because oftentimes we brag about how many seats are filled, but what kind of spirit occupies
absolutely
those seats?
Yeah.
So it was not just a shifting of the ministry,
Yeah.
but it was also a personal shifting in my own life.
So you talk about the personal shift in your life. Can we go a little personal? You are my wife's father, and you are the grandfather of our two beautiful daughters, Dallas and Sage. Can you talk about a little bit about life-work balance
Wow.
and how important, how your journey was to discover life-work balance?
Certainly, certainly. And again, it goes back to that whole idea of when you don't understand who you are, you can't clearly operate in your mission. So I was not a very good father because I was operating from the ministry model, God, church, family. We were taught that.
Absolutely.
That is incorrect.
Right.
It should be God, family, and then church. You know, and so I look at moments now with my grandchildren that are very deliberate for me that I can't recall with my children because I was so busy trying to build ministry. One of the things that my daughter, your wife, we talk about now because we both grown was that on 9/11 when they were shutting everything down, I was doing a funeral.
Wow.
At Saratoga and Fremont. Now this is to show you how messed up it is. They sent the announcement to the pulpit in the funeral for me to read. Schools are shutting down. Please go and pick up your children. Sir, I did not pick up my own daughter.
Wow.
I went to the cemetery with the family to bury their loved one. My daughter came home on the bus. I didn't understand that till years later.
Wow.
I should have excused myself from, just like other people were doing, went to the school and assured my daughter that she was safe.
Right.
But when you don't know better, you can't do better. And so I've been trying to instill in guys like you and others that I can get an audience with is that don't make the church your first love.
Let me pause. Can you talk to the person, maybe the preacher, maybe the ambitious millennial who's trying to chase purpose, trying to chase success? You just said don't fall in love with the church. But to the person who is not a preacher, the person who's not in the ministry or in this industry, can you tell them don't fall in love with chasing purpose? Because I feel like that's where we are, at least my generation is right now, is we've coined it this term, we call it chasing the bag. Chasing the bag literally means that there's a bag of money and we're going to get it. That's essentially what it means. And so you have a whole bunch of millennials, Gen Z, that is between the ages of 20 and 45, chasing the bag, chasing the dream, chasing the goal, ambitious, hungry. But you're saying, don't fall in love with that. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Well, I happen to believe that if purpose is really purpose, then purpose is bigger than the individual. Most of us have reduced purpose to that which is self-serving.
Wow.
If I understand the concept that purpose is bigger than me, then I understand I'm only one player on the team.
Okay. Yeah.
If purpose dies with me, then that was a very selfish purpose. Purpose has to be bigger than me.
Okay.
Purpose should outlive me. I should make my contribution to purpose, but not at the expense of destroying who I am and who I am connected to. So, whenever purpose cripples my family, then I don't care what's in the bag. I've just messed up a generation. And I think many pastors are guilty because, and business owners, and the list goes on, because we ran after something that we were supposed to be a part of, and not in its totality be wrapped around us.
Would you say it's a moving target?
It is very much.
Okay.
It's very much. And it's one where it's like a relay race. I'm supposed to pass the baton to you.
Right.
So that you can run your leg of the race. I think for us, we think once I get the bag, it's over.
Yeah.
That's why it's self-serving.
Wow. And so I like that you said that it's about the baton, which makes me think about legacy. At this juncture in your career, in your pastorate, how important is your legacy at this point in your life?
Okay. It's very important. And that's why I am doing what I can to strengthen the infrastructure of the ministry, because when I pass the baton, I don't want the ministry to have a setback.
Wow.
I want them to be able to go through the process, and I want to pass the baton while I'm alive, meaning retire, instead of the grave. All right? But however the Lord has it, I would hope that the next person could stand on my shoulders and then go to the next place in God for the ministry.
So you talk about your legacy as it relates to your pastorate. What do you want your legacy to be as a man, as a father, as a husband, as a pastor, as a person? What do you want your legacy to be?
And you said it earlier, so allow me to come back to it, that I was a man of balance. That I knew how to occupy multiple spaces effectively. The journey didn't start out for me that way. I am praying that's how it ends. That when I come to the end of my pastorate, that I will not feel that the process have robbed me of being a husband, father, and a grandfather.
Wow.
That starts now. That starts now. It means that the mentality has to be, okay, how do I keep the church afloat, but also be very present for my family? Because there were significant events I went to with my girls, but I wasn't present. My body was there, but my mind was, okay, now I got to do this, I got to do that, you know, get this sermon together, do this, and that's not fair. That's not fair. And so I wanted to be about balance, because that was not, my father didn't give me that. And I don't, bless his sainted memory, all right? But he wasn't taught that. And so my father was a workaholic. He worked all the time. And really didn't live too many years after his retirement.
Wow.
He had not developed in his mind the ability to shift.
Wow, that's amazing. I have one last question before we wrap this up, and this is, This is about purpose and how the season has really caused people to either forget their purpose or it's caused their purpose to feel like it's been stifled. What would you say to the person who is struggling to find purpose or get back on track? What would you say to that person?
Well, can I take it another route? Because
Absolutely.
I want to suggest that sometimes we can be misled.
Okay.
That we can think our purpose is one thing, and life has a way of showing us that no, that's what I wanted to do, but that's not what I was designed to do.
Wow.
So I think that this is a season of recalibration.
Wow.
Where people are really, and I encourage it,
Yeah.
examine, is this where you're supposed to be, or are you doing it out of history?
How do you figure out, or how do you identify what you've been designed to do versus what you want to do?
Well, what you've been designed to do comes with I guess it could be the other way around too, but it's a love-hate relationship.
Okay.
You know, what you've been designed to do, you don't always like to do.
Purpose over preference.
It doesn't always come with the luxury of saying, okay, I quit, I'm done. You know, purpose is something that was born in us. And even when I say I'm not going to do it, Jeremiah, he says it's like fire.
Shut up in my bones.
Shut up in my bones.
Yeah.
You know, and so sometimes we pick purpose because of what we think. Or sometimes people push us in that area. Real purpose, I don't think it can be lost. I think it can be misunderstood or misplaced. And God always has a refining process.
Wow.
To bring us back to what purpose is.
Wow.
So some of the stuff we attach to us and call purpose really wasn't purpose. You know, it was convenience.
Wow. It wasn't purpose. It was convenience.
It's going along for the ride. Or trends, because certainly that's a big word now.
Right.
The trend.
Right.
You know, but every trend doesn't help you with your purpose.
Wow. Okay. Wow. You wow.
Because I want to say a trend should be viewed as a tool. We don't
Okay.
we don't have to ignore the trends. But as you know, trends come and go.
Yeah.
That's the very nature of them.
Right.
We get wedded to them. Subsequently, when that dies, oh, my purpose died.
Right.
No, that trend died.
That trend died.
You know.
That trend died. And when we connect to trends, we end up getting stuck in the trend, and it ends up being tradition.
Yep.
Wow. I want to do one more thing.
Okay.
Because you are a teacher and you're a preacher. I know you said you prefer teaching, but don't get it twisted. You're a preacher. So I want to throw a verse at you, and I want to see what you have to say about it.
Oh, my. Okay. Catch
Yeah?
a verse, huh?
Catch a verse. One more game before we go. Is that fair?
All right. I'll do the best I can, church.
All right. Isaiah 43, 18, 19.
Okay.
I believe it says, don't quote me, but I believe it says, alludes to this. I make ways in the desert,
Uh-huh.
and I make paths in wastelands. behold, I'm doing a new thing. I said it backwards, but that's the gist of the text. What would you say about that text?
Well, when God declares he wants to do a new thing, he wanted Israel to understand that the place of desolation wasn't their end. So even in the wilderness, he could make a way. Even in the tough spots in life, he could open up the door. No, most of us, how can I say this? We don't recognize a miracle when we see it. We oftentimes call a miracle a mess. And God says, I need it to be a mess in order to do the miracle.
Wow.
And so the new thing is that God says, I'm taking that which looks unproductive,
Wow.
that which that appears to be unuseful, and I'm going to cut right through it so that the people who obey me can walk through it into a new land.
Wow.
And so I would say, just by encouraging people, don't despise your wilderness. It's a miracle in the making.
Wow.
God wants to do a new thing, and it's interesting that he can oftentimes use an old place to perform a new thing.
Yes.
So that wilderness, that desert place, is not foreign to God.
Right.
He says, I always use that which is at my disposal. I don't have to create anything else. He said, it's finished, It's gone. It's good. It's done.
Right.
When he did creation.
Right.
And so I just want to encourage the saints to understand that God is fixing that thing.
Absolutely.
That looks like it has no life in it.
Wow.
To be your path.
Wow. That's amazing.
To the next move.
That's amazing. Well, I think that's it. I want to say thank you so much, Bishop, for giving me the opportunity. I want to say I'm so grateful, and I can't wait. Maybe we can do this again.
Okay.
Let's do it again.
Thank you for the opportunity.
So, thank you so much. All right. God bless you. Bye.